Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It is me, ya boy, the only one that went to see the Formula 1 movie. I went to see it for a second time before, of course, this review came out, and now I have a better picture on how I can portray this movie for you guys. Let's start with the pros. This movie goes into so much detail that it basically, in my opinion, categorizes itself into its own category into the motorsport movie section, right? We have movies that were absolutely pinnacle when it came to story and as well as cinematography, like Ford versus Ferrari or Senna or the film about Niki Lauda. These movies were amazing. This movie, however, takes it up a notch. Not story wise, cinematography wise. This movie is basically the equivalent of Top Gun, but for car lovers, or in this case, Formula One lovers. What blew my mind is that the director himself came out and said that this movie, some shots were shot with an iPhone camera, which of course would make sense because this would be the first movie Apple directed. This movie had such a great cast when it came to some of new upcoming talents, of course some old ones. The main character, Brad Pitt, portraying himself as Sonny Hayes. The only problem is this is one of the things that this movie was a letdown for some. I'm probably gonna pronounce his name incorrectly, but Damson Idris portrayed Joshua in the movie, and then we have Jeffrey Berman, other actors that were basically high class. Probably one of its necessary key components, it had Sir Lewis Hamilton as the producer for this movie. It did show when it came to the racing where Lewis's influence about the sport came into play. Of course, the actors like Brad Pitt came out and basically said like Lewis was on the radio straight away to basically tell them, listen, you're not shifting correctly. The car needs to be revving at this amount. The amount of detail that Lewis gave for these actors to drive the cars was absolutely insane. What I did like was the fact that this movie managed to be produced during Grand Prix weekends, which is, of course, easier to do nowadays. Movies like Ford versus Ferrari or Senna or the Niki Lauda movie, it's a bit difficult to do. Those movies were portraying an era that you cannot possibly reenact nowadays. It was basically from an era that you cannot produce a movie without CGI or basically doing it in a way where it's not gonna look too modern, if that makes sense. The movies, cinematography wise, again, absolutely beautiful, and it's showed specifically when it came to the dramatic ones, to the dramatic scenes, the car accidents, the intense that you had in the cinema. When I watched it the first time, and the scene where, of course, Josh was trying to take over Max Verstappen, the last corner at Monza, you can sense that the movie, even though it's a motorsport movie, it did portray a lot of stuff that happens in real life. Teammates, like for example, Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton, were never seeing eye to eye. They were actually rivals. It's the same thing with other teammates. Red Bull are trying to find the driver for the second seat. But overall, the movie, cinematography-wise, color palettes, and camera work, it is beautifully shot. Scenes where the cars are just driving. Nothing is disturbing you as the viewer and the movie from giving you the feeling that you are in that car. I did also love, even though it's an F1 movie, I'm not sure how they managed, but the movie started with a different kind of category of races, and it ended on a different category of races. It started with as far as I remember, is the Daytona 24 hours, and then ended with Baja. However, this movie was far from perfect. A lot of people have been very vocal about this, and even critics. Some of the decisions that this movie didn't make sense. I kind of have to agree with some of those critics. Let's start with the Let's start with the most obvious one. So Brad Pitt is portrayed in this movie to be an ex Formula 1 driver that drove against Senna. If you do the math, this movie was shot between 2023 and 2024, which means if this story was based correctly, Sonny Hayes in this movie is 60. Let me repeat that. Sonny Hayes in this movie is not official, but if you do the math, either pushing 60 or is over 60. Why? We had our first official Formula 1 movie with Formula 1 branding, and no one in the boardroom went, I think this is not actually true, considering the fact that the reactions of a 60-year-old Formula 1 driver is not gonna be as quick as, for example, a mid-20s, like, for example, Charles Leclerc or George Russell or any one of the young drivers that we have currently in this season. Then explain to me how a guy that's pushing 60 managed to be quicker than a young, fit Formula 1 driver. And I'm not saying that it's not possible, because we have already people like Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, we have Nico Hulkenberg. These guys are not in their they're not in their 20s, some of them are pushing 40s, so these guys are still competitive. But 60? Really? And the whole scenario that this movie basically created. So you had Ruben coming in, listen, come help me with my F1 team. Sonny did refuse at first, but then of course he joined. And of course, they tested him out. And somehow, with Sonny crashing in the movie, in his first ever lap in the car, he was a few hundredths of a second away from Joshua. How? He crashed. How could he still be fast? And then don't get me started on the entirety where they had to include a romance and the way that this movie portrayed the fact that this team had to win. Apex GP needs to find a new way, basically needs to find a way how to win. And Sonny here comes with the infamous now Plan C. It's not tire strategy, it's Plan Chaos. So he's wrecking himself on purposely, holding back an entire grid. Worst of all, as we mentioned before, Joshua crashes because one of the strategies was keeping Joshua on mediums in torrential rain at Monza. The scene where the mother then basically confronts Sonny and tells him, listen, you almost killed my fucking son. That was heartfelt. But realistically, usually, if a driver is showing intent in wrecking other drivers around him, that is considered either a black flag or he's instantly disqualified. Sonny, in this movie, never got disqualified once when he was basically intentionally wrecking himself. The commentators were actually as well picking up on it, and they said it in the movie. The main villain of this movie comes at the very last bit, which is one shareholder that basically wanted the team to go bankrupt, and he wanted Sonny as part of the deal. The one thing we really didn't need is the romance between the technical director, Kate, played by Kerry Condon, and Brad Pitt. A driver and team technical director having a romance like this, like, really? The little things that could have made this movie a 10 out of 10 may let it down to a point where now it will leave people with more questions. Keep in mind, this movie is branding itself for new Formula 1 viewers. Can they do that in real life? Why can't they do it in real life? Oh, they should do this. They should do Plan Chaos. And it's already happening. So yeah, the Formula 1 movie, absolutely beautiful for cinematography-wise, horrible story-wise. I'd probably rank it an 8.5. But I still recommend you should go watch the movie. Leave your opinion on the movie down below. and we can have a discussion. So, thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you later. Peace.